Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you could be with us tonight. My guest is Corey Bulman, and he is the 2017 Minnesota Teacher of the Year. His award came in May, and we're taping in June, so we're one of the first to get an in-depth interview with Corey. You teach at Mound Westonka High School,
Yes.
And you teach language arts. And so for those who wouldn't quite be able to define it, how do you describe what language arts entails?
Well, language arts would be what a lot of people would know traditionally as English. So I teach literature courses, writing courses. This day and age, we look at new media as well, look at websites, looking at the validity of websites. But it's a literature course with a writing component as well.
And you're teaching 9th and 11th and 12th graders.
Yes.
So why not poor 10th graders?
I've never taught 10th grade.
You haven't?
No,
Interesting.
For 13 years, I've focused primarily on our 11th and 12th graders. The way that teaching schedules work is sometimes there's a gap that has to be filled, and I had the opportunity to teach 9th grade last year. I get to do it again next year, which will be nice because being able to do it more than 1 year, you can start to iron out the kinks and see what works and make sure that you're giving them the best opportunities.
And 9th graders are a lot different than seniors, aren't they?
It's different. It's different. You're definitely getting to see them on different ends of the high school spectrum.
Right, which would be fascinating. And then for those that you get to follow in the future here and teach as 9th graders, and then maybe
that's really nice. I mean, I've
juniors.
had the opportunity occasionally to have students 3 of their 5 years because we have 8th through 12th graders.
Yeah.
I always apologize to them when they're seniors saying, I'm sorry, here you are again.
Here I am
but
again.
you get to know them quite well when you have that opportunity.
You know, one of the things I've always wondered about with good teachers who have great rapport with their kids, how it feels when they leave and you have to say goodbye. And I mean, we always say, well, I'll keep in touch, and I'm sure some do, but how do you deal with the saying goodbye part of being a teacher?
It's with the students.
Yeah.
It's difficult. You get to know them on personal levels, and you've seen them grow, and you've seen them change as writers and change as people. It's nice you can keep in touch with them via email at this point, but I think my experience as a teacher is a lot like my experience as a student. You often don't talk to those people going forward, but they always have had an impact on you, and that's the same on the other end of the desk. As a teacher, there's so many students I've had who have had ideas or challenged me to think about things in new ways, and I always think about them, and it's so nice when out of the blue you'll get an email or a phone call from a student who's now in their 30s and has children of their own that you get to reconnect with. So that's part of this award has been quite nice because I've had that opportunity.
People come back and
yeah, it's one of those things I wish other teachers were given that opportunity, because to hear from students that you've had over the course of a decades-long career is quite a special opportunity.
Yes.
It's been
yeah, that'd be one of the bonuses.
It's been a huge bonus with this for me.
I know a 92-year-old woman who taught first grade, and students still are contacting her, and when she tells me about that, she just lights up, and it means so much. And I'm sure some of those people are in their 70s, you know, or older. So you've taught for 18 years.
Next year will be my 18th year.
Oh, next year, okay. And you've taught it where he teaches now is Mound Westonka High School. How surprised were you when you won, Corey, and were announced? I mean, was it?
I was quite surprised. It was very humbling.
I bet.
To be nominated by a colleague, which is how this started, to be able to apply for the program to begin with, and then to make the initial cut, and then to make the semifinalist, and then become a finalist with 10 other teachers. There were 11 of us. And then to get to meet them over the course of the Teacher of the Year weekend was really awe-inspiring. These people are doing really amazing work. So to be chosen among these new colleagues that I got to meet was a pretty awe-inspiring moment for me.
I bet. And are you slated to go to Washington, D.C.? Is that part of the year's agenda yet? I know I've interviewed other Minnesota Teachers of the Year, and they usually get a trip to Washington.
There'll be several week-long trips that are a part of this. I will get to go to a conference to meet the other Teachers of the Year.
From each state?
From each state.
Okay.
There's 56. There's 50 Teachers of the Year, and then U.S. protectorates, and then the defense schools have a Teacher of the Year as well.
Okay.
So I'll get that opportunity early winter to get to know those people, and then in April is Washington Week, where we'll go and we spend a week there. You get to meet members of Congress. You get to visit the White House. So it's going to be quite a unique opportunity for me.
Yeah,
it's not quite what I thought was going to happen when the last school year started. So this has all been unique, to say the least.
And exciting, yeah, it's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
As a teacher and teaching American Lit primarily, right? I mean, in terms of literature.
American literature, and I teach an advanced placement course as well, but I've focused on American literature for juniors for 14 years at this point.
Including both poetry and prose?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What is your favorite part of your teaching?
Favorite part of my teaching?
What turns you on the most?
I think getting the chance to talk to young people about their ideas, it's what keeps me young. It's a funny profession because some people would say, and people say all the time, well, these kids, bless you. And of course, I always look at that very differently. I mean, these kids challenge us, and they challenge teachers to be better versions of themselves, to think about the possibilities of what the future will look like. I feel very honored to be able to do that for a living. And so to get to know these students and to watch them grow, as we talked about, is a really extraordinary opportunity. And to be in one school for quite a long time and to get to see families and get to know siblings. I get to know people and see them right at the cusp of when they're about to go on to do something else. And I find that a pretty extraordinary responsibility and a real gift to be able to do that every day.
It sounds like, from what I read about your teaching, that you really like the interactive part of it. And you described yourself as a learner as well as a teacher. And I would think that the kids would love that. That you don't come at it as the only authority in the room.
Well, that's what I always tell them. I don't own a teacher copy of the books that I teach. The copies of the books that I teach my students are the same copy they have. I just put my name in mine. And that my notes have changed over the years. I teach The Great Gatsby every year. I've probably read The Great Gatsby 50 times.
Wow.
And I'll find a note that I would have written when I was 27 and cross it out, and I have a dialogue with myself, as I see a note that no longer makes sense, or that with my life experience, I've seen it in a different way, and that knowledge always unfolds, that growth mindset, always looking at where knowledge could go is, I think, for me as a teacher, is a really important part of my practice. That constructing meaning is much more interesting for me than doling out meaning. That if it's about just writing down my answer, my job is not to make them think like me, it's to help them to think like they are going to be as people.
Help them clarify what they believe,
exactly.
Or how they view literature, or quotes, or whatever. That sounds great to me, as putting myself in the student role and thinking of good teachers I've had. It sounds like you had one teacher that made a huge difference in your life when you were in grade school, right?
I've had several teachers throughout the process that were very important to me. One teacher in particular I have was a high school English teacher, and I got to see her last week, and I hadn't seen her in 25 years. And she had us analyze Beatles lyrics, and she had us read Charles Dickens. And as a teenage boy in a small town, the idea that someone would give me a piece of British literature and honestly want to know what I thought about it was incredibly important in my development as a student. I think it helped propel me to come here up to Minneapolis to go to the University of Minnesota. Gave me the courage to take English courses at the university, and the rest is history. And I think that good teachers are built by the mentors who came before them. I often will tell my students that I'm the legacy of the teachers that I was able to have in my life. And so I always look at this as a responsibility that I have as well, to present curriculum and ideas in a very empowering way, because I know that I will have an impact one way or another, and I want it to be as positive as possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I've read too that for kids who are struggling or coming from a family that's not supportive, just having one adult who really cares about them and pays attention in a real personal way can make the difference in how they develop, really.
I think young people crave authenticity. Mm-hmm. They want adults that will take them seriously. Mm-hmm. They want adults that will push back on them, that will make them accountable to themselves.
Challenge them.
I think that authenticity in an educational setting or in a first job setting is something that I craved as a young person, and I see that every day. I see young people that want their ideas validated and want to be challenged to think about ideas and concepts in a new way. I think that's just vitally important.
What seems, as a non-teacher, although I did do student teaching, as I told you, and got my education certificate, to meet the needs of 25, or how many, do you have about 25 in a class?
Yeah, it'll be anywhere from 20 to 35.
Oh, up to 35, yikes. To meet the needs of 20 to 35, that's where it starts sounding a little overwhelming, because they're coming from 35 or 20 different backgrounds and needs and maturity level.
Yeah, when you're first
So
starting
to
out, that's one of the more difficult aspects of the job when you're first starting out, is realizing that you don't teach 5 classes. You teach 150 individual students with individual backstories and individual needs and individual home life situations, and that trying to figure out what is the key for each of those students. There are students that need to be pushed a little bit harder. There are students that need more support, and a lot of that comes with experience as a classroom teacher as well, where you start realizing who needs what, and that it's a constant tweaking of that relationship. That one size fit all doesn't usually work for students, and that what works 1 hour for a particular class might fall absolutely flat when you do it 47 minutes later.
The group dynamics are different, right?
The question was different. Their thinking about a particular subject is different.
Yeah, so you can't just say, because I'm teaching this subject several times today, it's going to be the same each time,
yeah,
right?
It never goes the way that you think it's going to go.
And sometimes better and sometimes worse, I bet.
That happens.
Now, you said in something I read that you struggled a lot at a certain point as a young boy. What age was that, Corey, that
I struggled pretty mightily with school through about 11th grade.
Oh, did you?
I had.
You mean all the way from
I had a lot of trouble with mathematics.
Okay.
And I had a lot of trouble seeing myself as equals of some of my classmates, and it just took growth and experience. And I think that different young people hit that at different points of their life.
Right.
I had the opportunity to be an exchange student for a year during my senior year of high school. I spent a year in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Wow. I was able to see the world in brand new ways. I was able to understand.
Was that via the Rotary?
Through the Rotary.
Yeah, that's what I remember reading, that you were involved with the Rotary, but I don't think I knew it was Brazil.
And the world just opened up.
Wow.
And so I came back home.
Coming from rural Wisconsin, basically.
Coming from rural Wisconsin,
Yeah.
I came back home and did one more year of high school. And by that point, I had a chance to travel. I had a chance to survive on my own wits and started to realize that there are multiple kinds of intelligences. And when I came to the University of Minnesota to go to college, I just blossomed as a student. It was a perfect time in my life and in the perfect institution to allow that to happen.
And such a contrast from, Corey told me the town he grew up in was
about 3,800
3,800, but the name of the town is
Horicon,
Wisconsin, in between Madison and Milwaukee. So 3,800 people in the town, and then to come to the U of M, where, what, are there 40-some thousand students?
Yeah, my first class at the U
was
had
that
more...
not a cultural shock?
My first class at the university had more students in it than my high school had. And I remember meeting another young student, and she was from South Dakota. And we had coffee about a week in, and I said, "What do you think?" She said, "It's very overwhelming." And I said, "Isn't it wonderful?" I just thought it was, for me, it was absolutely perfect to join that mass of humanity and go to these large classes and meet people from all over.
Okay, so you were just ready.
I was ready, and this was the right place. Mm-hmm.
Where were you in your family?
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest, okay.
I have one sister.
And your parents, in terms of their work and careers?
My father was an insurance agent, and my mother was an occupational therapist.
Oh, okay.
But I was the first, I was the only member of my immediate family at the time who had pursued a 4-year degree. My father since had retired and then went and did his undergraduate degree in history to become a teacher.
Really?
So I was on the other end. I had to read my father's papers, and I had to give advice about student teaching. So
that's what we call role reversal, isn't it?
It was a relatively bizarre time for me.
I bet. As a teacher, what's been the hardest part of teaching for you?
The hardest part of teaching? I think that it's a relatively strange life, because for 9 months a year, it's when that first bell rings, it's go time until the last bell rings in June. And then you have 3 months that are very quiet. And I think it took a number of years to try to find balance in what that grind looks like. I teach 5 classes a day, I teach 25 classes a week, and trying to balance out what that preparation looks like, what communication with parents looks like, what assessment looks like. And when you first start out, you have a lot of balls in the air and you don't quite know how to keep them all in the air. And I think that trying to find balance has always been a difficult part of the job. And I'm not alone in that. I think that for educators, it's a difficult balancing act, especially when you start to have your own family.
Right. And you're married and
I have 2 little girls.
2 little girls.
I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old.
5 and 2. So when you go home, it's full on family time, I bet.
And to get to see them now on the other end of the education spectrum.
Right.
So my 5-year-old.
Does that scare you a little?
Oh, absolutely, that scares me. But I also understand as my soon-to-be kindergartner starts school, what that journey looks like.
Yes.
And to know just the awesome power of people who teach really young children. Like I was telling an elementary school teacher recently, I said, you teach people to read. That's amazing. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun to be on the other end and really watch what that looks like.
And maybe a little challenging to not want to give ideas to the teachers.
The nice thing about doing this for quite a few years is that I often will just stand back in awe of the practice that people have, and watching people with different specialities. So I don't think I will get in the way all that much. I think that we are fortunate that we're going to have our students, our children in a school that seems to be ready to really take care of our students.
Is it public school?
Public schools.
The whole public-private charter school situation, how do you defend public schools in terms of some of the things that they're criticized for? What do you think is the value of the public school?
I think it's the great leveler of democracy. It's an institution that educates more people in this country than any other institution. It provides activities, educational opportunities, life experiences for students. Now, I have nothing against families that want to pursue other avenues, but I'm a staunch defender of the public school system. I am a product of the public school system all the way through my education, and that no matter if a student is going to a small rural school in southern Wisconsin or a large public institution in Minneapolis, every student deserves an opportunity for an equal, fair education. I will defend public education for anybody that wants to listen, because I know the benefits that it provided to me.
We should have you talk to our new Department of Education person.
Well, I'll have a chance, because I
right,
think in April I'll get a chance to meet her.
Are you concerned about what might happen at the federal level in terms of public education?
Oh, like all teachers, I'm watching what's happening and waiting to see. I'm lucky enough that I don't, as a teacher, I'm on the policy end. I'm not on the policy end of education. I'm on the delivery end. So I think a lot of teachers are watching the way that those policies will unfold. But until I'm told to do things in a different way, we'll thoughtfully work together at the local level to make sure that that delivery end is giving those students a quality educational experience.
And the local end and the state end have a lot of authority and power too, don't they, in terms of how things are carried out policy-wise?
Well, you look at funding issues on that state level, but each local individual school district has a lot of power in the way that they're going to dictate curriculum and the way their program is going to work as well, and it requires a lot of thought and care on a local level. That real combination of working with administrations and with classroom teachers to try to provide quality educational experience.
A lot of young teachers that I have gotten to know through the years have taught for many years, have been great teachers, and then have said, I can't do it anymore. I'm burning out, or I'm afraid I am about to burn out. What do you say to those people that might be on the edge, who might be listening right now, who are saying, I don't know if I can do it another year?
I think it really requires educators working together and leaning on each other. That every educator goes through those moments, and we really see that with young teachers. The attrition rate of young teachers in the country is pretty staggering. So I'll often tell young teachers 2 to 5 years into their career that what you're going through is normal, and that it's never a sign of defeat to talk to other educators about where you're struggling. That there's power in that. It's a strange profession, because you are often in a building with 1,000 people, but often you are, as an adult, you are alone a lot of the day with young people. And I think as young teachers come in, getting used to how that works, and always being on stage and having to keep that energy up can be really overwhelming. But by working together and having good teacher training, having good mentor programs in schools, you can really give them a good base to keep them energized, because we need good young teachers to come into the system. We need that.
So if you see, or when you see teachers leave, I'm sure you're like me and are just sad about it, because perhaps if they would have gone to a colleague or, ask for more support, things might have been different.
Well, I always want to see educators get to leave on their own terms. Especially if somebody's been teaching a long time, they're taking a wealth of knowledge with them.
Right.
And making sure that school districts have programs in place to really reinvigorate teachers is really important, because we need a mix of young teachers who bring energy, and we need seasoned veterans in there, and that's how our students are able to get a quality education, and that's how the younger generation of teachers are taught and mentored as well.
We're getting a wind-up signal in a few minutes, and before we have to stop, if someone wants to get a hold of you, Corey, what's the best way?
Especially early in the year, contacting me via email would probably be the easiest.
Okay.
My email address is Bulman, BULMANC, @westonka.edu. westonka.k12.mn.us.
Okay, we will put that on the screen. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you.
There may be some teachers who are feeling this burnout issue and might need a little, shot in the arm. We especially need male teachers, don't we?
You see ebbs and flows in different disciplines, and
Okay.
I was meeting with a group of students at one point in the spring, and I said, well, I'm a male teacher, a male English teacher. I'm like a unicorn, but we do exist. I think having students be able to see representatives of themselves is quite important. I think that goes for male and female teachers. I think that goes for teachers from various communities, that we really need people that would want to pursue this career and give back to their own communities. I think a lot of people...
So different ethnic groups.
Exactly.
That's what you
I
mean.
think a lot of people get scared away from education for various reasons, whether it's economics or what the daily work of a teacher looks like. But it's an incredibly enriching profession, and you have such direct impact on the community that you live in that I always encourage people that are thinking about teaching to contact a local school, volunteer, go and talk to working educators at this point to see if it's something that could fit for you, and if it is, to pursue what a teaching certificate would look like, and make sure that you're working with kids, because it's an enriching job that has really amazing benefits.
Now, if you ever heard of a wonderful poster kind of talk for teaching, isn't this it? Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Corey. It's really interesting and inspiring to hear you talk and to realize, there are people like you all over out there that are doing these wonderful career kind of things, and I'm just so pleased that you got the awards you did and can spread the good work or good news about teaching. So
Well, thank you. I appreciate the time.
good, thanks. Thank you for being with us. I'll be back again next week. Until then, have a good week.